everyone. It's Amelia here with Higher Standards Caregiver Training. I am an occupational therapist. If you're a friend of mine here on Facebook, you probably have seen some of the other content that I put out. I'm just going to preface this by saying, okay, so what we're doing today is we're going to talk about 5 really essential ingredients in caring for someone with dementia. And this live stream is really focused on family caregivers, y'all. Although I'm sure professional caregivers definitely can have interesting comments and can take stuff away from it as well. But this is really truly meant for family caregivers right here. And so I thought it would be fun, since the holidays are approaching, if we did sort of, especially Thanksgiving, sort of like a cooking themed metaphor for caring for someone with dementia. I'm going to go ahead and just preface this by saying I am not an expert baker, nor have I ever cooked anything live on camera before. I am not Rachel Ray, y'all. Nonetheless, I hope that this will be fun and interesting for anyone watching to hopefully get some good information and have kind of a fun, lighthearted time as well. Because of course, if you are a caregiver of someone with dementia, then sometimes life can be pretty serious. So we need to sometimes take every moment that we can to be lighthearted and find joy. So that's what we're doing today. So I am going to be making a 5-ingredient apple pie. One of my favorite things to do as a therapist actually is, over the years, I have collected recipes from many of the clients that I have served and cared for. And so I was looking through my little recipe book of recipes that folks have shared with me over the years, and I found this 5-ingredient apple pie recipe, and I thought it would be perfect to share. One, because it's super simple, and so I'm not that scared of doing it live on camera, but also because there are 5 ingredients here, and when I am teaching family caregivers about how different methods and strategies they can use to care for folks with dementia, for loved ones with dementia, I talk about 5 essential strategies. So I thought that we would kind of put these 2 things together here. And hi, Jen. Oh my goodness, so nice to see you here. Okay, so we will go ahead and get started. So I'll start by kind of identifying what are these 5 essential strategies that I talk about when I'm teaching family caregivers how to more safely and easily care for loved ones with dementia, and also with a little bit less frustration, because let's be honest, like, let's just put it out there, this can be a difficult, frustrating process. So the 5 strategies, I use an acronym called DEFT to organize these, to kind of make them easy to remember. The D stands for distraction. The E stands for emotions or empathy. There's actually 2 F's. The first F is for flexibility, not physical flexibility, y'all, but our mental flexibility, sometimes our emotional flexibility. The second F is for familiarity, and the T is for tuned in, okay? So we're going to focus more in on some of those today than others, just because one, we have, I could be here literally like all afternoon talking about all of the methods in the strategy, but also, we want to keep this short and sweet and simple, so that y'all in your busy schedules can get something valuable and then go back to your busy days. So this first D, the D, oh, by the way, the reason there's not 2 E's, like empathy and emotion, is because then it would be deeft, and then that's hard to remember. Anyway, oh good, I'm so glad you like apple pie. Jen, this is like the easiest recipe ever. Okay, so I've already got the bottom part of my crust all baked. I actually prepared for this a little bit. So let's start talking though about some of these other ingredients. We're going to call the D is for distraction, is for the crust. One of the other really important ingredients though here, this is a giant bowl full of apples, is the apples in apple pie, right? We can't have apple pie without apples. We really, so E for emotion and empathy, that's what the apples are for here today. And I want to dig into that a little bit more, because as powerful as some of the other strategies are, we cannot successfully care for someone with dementia without empathy and without having an awareness and an acceptance of the emotions that we are all having, and understanding that those emotions are okay. So let's talk about E for empathy while I'm mixing up some of these other ingredients. So why is empathy so important, and how does it actually help in the journey that we are taking with our loved one to care for someone with dementia? Well, certainly one of the things that can be really frustrating when caring for someone with dementia is a lot of times, folks with dementia they might be having behaviors or reactions or feel agitated or aggressive, and these are often things that are we think of as being caused by the dementia. But if we really think about it, these are actually just human emotions that we all have, and in many ways they are logical reactions to the circumstances that that person is in and to their experience of the world. And so here's why empathy is so important here. If we can put ourselves in that person's shoes, if we can understand their experience and have empathy for the emotions that they're having, that really helps us as caregivers in a couple of ways. One, it can help us, if we see their perspective and try to understand their experience, that can help us to think about different ways that we are approaching issues or approaching care in order to make it less stressful, less anxiety-provoking, a more positive experience for the person that we're caring for. On the other hand, if we can do those things for the person that we're caring for, it makes it a much less stressful experience for us. Plus, if you think about it, if you can have empathy for someone else's situation, for wherever they're coming from, it makes it a lot harder to get overwhelmed with your own frustration, to feel angry, because when we're empathizing with someone and we can feel where they're coming from, it's easier to relate. And oh my goodness, someone just rang my doorbell during the middle of this. It might be Amazon. I don't know. I'm just going to leave that. That's a first. Okay. But anyway, so we're talking about empathy. Okay, who's the other person that we need to have empathy for, though, in this relationship? I should probably get mixing up here. I'll wait a second. Who's the other person that we need empathy for? Oh, that would be you. You, the caregiver. And who needs to have empathy for you? Of course, the healthcare providers around you need to do a better job of having empathy for the situation that you are in and providing you with great resources. Family and friends around you would certainly be a benefit to have empathy from those people around you, but also you have to allow yourself to have empathy for you. Allow yourself the freedom to experience the emotions that you're having, whatever they are, and not frame them as positive or negative, but just as what they are, because they're normal, they're natural, and it's okay. You don't have to feel guilty about the way you feel or about the situation. You're doing the best that you can. Have empathy, most of all, for yourself. Okay, let's mix up some other ingredients here. So what are we going to put in with these apples? We're going to put in, the number of tablespoons of flour that you put in really depends on the number of apples. These were pretty big apples. So you're going to notice I'm not the best baker in the world, and that this is not going to be no bakers would be proud of me. This is not going to be exact measurement. But I'm going to put in a couple of kind of heaping teaspoons of flour here. Really just like enough. You just want enough to coat the apples. I'm going to put in like, oh my goodness, my cinnamon. My ground cinnamon has an actual cinnamon stick in it too. That's a fun surprise. Okay, goes to show I probably haven't been in here for a little while. All right, I'm going to put in about a teaspoon of cinnamon. And again, like you can do more or less of this just depending on how much you like cinnamon. Fun fact, my children hate cinnamon. So they probably won't eat this, but I will. You know, they can have ice cream. Okay, and then let's go ahead and put in, oh, let's see. So let's call that cinnamon, we're going to call that flexibility. We're going to call the flour familiarity. We're going to call the sugar being tuned in. And by the way, we're like at all of our, this is half a cup of sugar, just so you know. I'm putting it all in there. Let's talk, I don't have a spoon. Let me grab a spoon. Okay, I'm back. Let's talk about one of these other kind of essential ingredients as I'm sort of stirring this all up. And like literally I'm just trying to get a good coating of all this on the apples. Oh my gosh, the cinnamon smells amazing. It just like makes everything better to me. So I totally lost my train of thought. Okay, so the other really important concept that I want to talk about, and this is more like, this is more nuts and bolts caring for someone with dementia, and that is we want to keep things familiar. I was actually just talking about this on a live training earlier today with professional caregivers, and what we were talking about was how, you know, if you take someone who has dementia out of their normal environment and you ask them to do a task that they're unfamiliar with, then what you're going to see is that the symptoms of their dementia become really, really obvious, right? You will see all of a sudden a lot more problems than you might be seeing if you have someone in a familiar environment where they are doing a task that is familiar and doing it the same way that they always do it. And it's important to note, you know, as caregivers for someone with dementia, it's not our job to try to change the dementia or change the person or try to fix this issue, because unfortunately you can't. What it is our job to do is to try to make things as easy as possible by having things set up in a way that that person can actually engage and participate in a way that really highlights what they can do versus shedding light on the things that are difficult for them that they can't do. And one of the easiest ways to do this is simply by keeping things familiar. And we want to think about all the different ways that we can keep things familiar for someone. It could be familiar in terms of the environment. So if we want someone to be able to move through their environment more safely, more independently, then as much as possible, we want to keep that environment set up the same way. I'll give you an example that I use a lot, and it's getting up from bed. So let's say you have someone who has gotten up on the left side of the bed every day for the last 40 years, and they have dementia. We don't want to make a change in their environment that suddenly requires them to get up on the right side of the bed. Or if for some reason they do need to, say, change rooms or they're moving somewhere else, then we want to make sure as much as possible that we are still allowing them to get up on the left side of the bed. Because if we suddenly ask them to do it a different way, it's going to be really, really challenging. It's going to highlight a lot of issues, and it can cause a lot of anxiety and frustration for that person, which then can cause a lot of anxiety and frustration for the caregiver. So we want to try and keep the environment as familiar as possible, so long as it's safe, of course. And I should note here, you know, all of this is great general education. Definitely, if you feel like you need if you hear anything that makes you feel like the person that you're caring for really needs to be assessed by a licensed therapist, by a nurse, by a doctor, definitely, you know, make sure that you go and do that. As this is all these strategies are really great general strategies. They're great general education, but they're not a substitute for treatment for your loved one. Okay, so what are some other ways that we can keep things familiar? We want to allow people to continue to participate as much as possible in whatever way they are able to participate. Because the more we allow people to continue to do things, the longer they will maintain those skills. And again, that can be something really simple. You know, rather than jumping in to help someone get dressed, if they don't really need all of that assistance, then kind of taking a step back, sort of in the therapy world, we say sitting on your hands, which can be hard to do, and letting that person have a little bit of extra time to move through the process and participate and do more of it on their own. Because the more they continue to do, the longer they will be able to maintain those skills. So those are two really important ways that we can kind of keep things familiar. Okay, so these apples are super well coated. They smell, oh my gosh, they smell so good. Okay, I'm gonna go get my pie crust. And it's so warm, I better put that down on the counter. Notice, by the way, that I am such not a baker that I am counting a fully prepared pie crust as one ingredient. I realize that there are probably bakers out there, well, there are obviously bakers out there who actually make their own pie crust. Listen, y'all, that is hard. Like I said, I'm not Rachel Ray, and this is 5-ingredient pie, so we're keeping it easy and being flexible and, you know, just having the pre-prepared pie crust. You know, that's another death decide. Another just like really good tip for life and for the holidays in general. If you're a caregiver, these times, the holidays can be really overwhelming for so many reasons. Don't feel like you have to make everything perfect, or like you have to make everything just so, or like the pie crust has to be homemade from scratch. Cut yourself a break. Keep things simple, keep it easy, you know, figure out those 2 or 3 things that are really, really important to you about being together with your loved one, and focus on those things. But, you know, the holidays can be so overwhelming for everyone, but especially for caregivers, family caregivers, can be a really isolating time. It can be a really difficult time on so many levels in terms of even going through your own grieving process. So cut yourself some slack, keep it simple, focus on just a couple of things that are really, really meaningful to you, and don't give yourself a hard time if everything isn't perfect, because perfection is it just doesn't exist. It just doesn't exist, right? Okay, so I have my apples in here. Now I'm going to put, this is so fancy, I'm putting the lattice on top. And I'm just pressing it down. Onto the baking thing. This is not the baking thing. Yeah, so you can tell how much I bake. But it looks pretty. Just a nice little crosshatch. And all I did to make these strips is I literally took the other pie crust that was in like the pre-made pie crust thing, and I just cut it into strips. Super, super easy. This whole process, honestly, I could have done in like 2 minutes had I not been like jabbering the whole time. Okay guys, so that's it here. I'm gonna hold it up for you. Actually, it's not that hot. I'm not using hot pads because it's not that hot, okay? It's just like barely warm anymore. But please, if something comes out of the oven, make sure that you are using hot pads. So here, if I can do it without spilling it all over the place. Isn't that pretty? Of course, if you wanted to make it like nice and shiny, you could brush some egg white over there. Also, if you're vegan, you can actually make it nice and shiny by brushing like a non-dairy milk on top of it. And I think, I'm sure, because they make everything vegan nowadays, they actually make vegan pre-made pie crust, I'm pretty sure. So you could do this whole thing vegan too. Okay, so that's it. The pie is done. It's ready to go in. Just like if you're making a pie, it is so important to have all of the right ingredients, all of the right strategies if you are embarking on this very challenging journey, or if you're already on it, this very challenging journey for caring for someone with dementia. If you need more information, if you need more tips or strategies, definitely check me out on YouTube. If you search YouTube for Higher Standards Caregiver Training, I've got a channel there with a ton of helpful tips and strategies. Go through it, see what you like, make sure that you subscribe, follow, like it, share it, all that jazz. On the other hand, if you really feel like you need to zero in on something, get all of the information in kind of one fell swoop in a nice, tidy little package, then make sure that you are visiting my website at www.higherstandardscaregivertraining.com. And that's where you can find full-length courses available for family caregivers specifically on topics ranging from how to protect your back, how to prevent yourself from lifting so much, all the way up to how to really strategically and practically provide things like bed level care for your loved one. I have an entire course all about caring for folks with dementia. There's a lot of content there for you that's really, really easy to get and consume in a way that works for busy family caregivers. So, and of course, if you have any questions at all, make sure to message me, reach out if you have any questions, concerns, or needs. Otherwise, I think I'm going to put this pie into the oven here, and then we'll go ahead and sign off. Oh wait, I gotta open the oven first. Here it goes. My husband is going to be so confused. He's going to be like, you haven't baked a pie in years. But hey, my handy little recipe book full of recipes from past clients comes in handy. Oh, Jen, okay, what does the DEF stand for again? D is for distraction, and that's really about managing the distraction in the environment to help promote better performance. The E is for emotion and empathy. The first F is for flexibility. The second F is for familiarity, and the T is for tuned in. And that really just is about, being tuned in to the person that you are caring for, to notice if things are changing, if there are needs that are unmet, and other issues that can really impact both the caregiver themselves and, of course, the person being cared for. Does that kind of clear it up for you? And again, of course, with the limited time frame available in an afternoon, we didn't go super deep into all of those, but like I said, you can definitely find more information and a full, complete review of all of that stuff at higherstandardscaregivertraining.com. Any other questions before we sign off here today? I cannot believe that I just successfully baked a pie on Facebook Live. I hope that it was a simple pie. All right, y'all. Well, I am going to I'm going to come around and sign off here. Now my face is going to be bigger than you want it to be. All right, guys. Oh, thank you so much for coming. I appreciate you so much. Have a wonderful afternoon and a wonderful weekend. Everyone, make sure that you stay safe and take care. Bye, guys.